Raylee JoLynn Browning was born on July 11, 2010, in Beckley, West Virginia, to her parents Marty Browning and Janice. From the very beginning, her life seemed full of promise. Known as Sunshine by her mother, Raylee had bright blue eyes, strawberry blonde hair, and a smile that could light up any room. Her dreams were simple. She wished to become a teacher, to see the ocean, and to experience the joy of childhood to its fullest. Yet, what should have been a safe, nurturing home soon became a place of hidden pain. In July 2014, her mother Janice remarried, and Raylee gained a stepfather, Jeremy Risson, and became part of a blended family that included multiple siblings and half-siblings. On paper, Raylee's life seemed structured, with a family surrounding her. But behind closed doors, troubling patterns began to emerge. Raylee spent part of her week with her mother and the remaining days with her father, following a 50-50 custody arrangement. However, her time at her father Marty Browning's home, alongside stepmother Julie Titanel and her sister Cher Titanel, would soon reveal a disturbing reality that the public and authorities would later struggle to fully understand. Teachers and neighbors noticed Raylee's gentle, affectionate nature. She thrived in school, often clinging to adults she trusted, seeking comfort, attention, and safety. Yet, in her own home, she was frequently subjected to harsh treatment. Incidents of unexplained bruises, limited food, and strict, sometimes cruel discipline were reported by those closest to her, though many of these warnings went unnoticed for months. Despite multiple reports to Child Protective Services and concerned educators, Raylee's life at home remained precarious. She endured a series of confusing, contradictory explanations for her injuries and her condition, often told by adults in her life who sought to cover up what was truly happening. By early 2018, Raylee's health and well-being had visibly declined. She appeared pale, underweight, and exhausted, yet her spirit remained quietly resilient. Those who cared for her, including teachers and friends, began to sense that something was gravely wrong. Today, in this documentary, we examine the timeline of Raylee JoLynn Browning's final years, the systemic failures that allowed her suffering to go undetected, and the lessons her story teaches us about vigilance, responsibility, and the need for greater protection for children everywhere. In this first part, we will explore Raylee's early life, her family dynamics, and the first signs of concern that would eventually lead to a heartbreaking tragedy. Every detail presented is based on verified public records, court documents, and reliable reporting, shared to educate and inform, never to sensationalize. Stay with us as we walk through the events, piece by piece, to understand what truly happened in Raylee JoLynn Browning's world. By 2012, Raylee JoLynn Browning's parents had separated due to ongoing conflicts and personal struggles. Her mother, Janice, faced challenges controlling substance use, which affected her ability to care for Raylee consistently. Her father, Marty Browning, was also navigating a complicated household, and the court implemented a 50-50 custody arrangement to ensure Raylee remained connected to both parents. This arrangement, meant to protect her, became increasingly difficult to maintain. Marty Browning began a relationship with Julie Titanel, a single mother of 3, and the family eventually moved to Mount Lookout, West Virginia. This relocation violated the existing custody agreement, as Janice was not notified of the move, making it nearly impossible for her to see Raylee regularly. Over the following months, Janice attempted to maintain contact, but her calls and messages were often ignored. She went several months without seeing her daughter, prompting her to file a complaint with family court. While these legal steps were underway, Raylee's home environment became more isolated and increasingly concerning. Raylee's daily life at her father's home involved a blended household with Julie Titanel's children and Cher Titanel, who assumed authority in the home. Multiple accounts later revealed that Raylee was frequently punished harshly, often for reasons unrelated to her behavior. She was reported to have been forced to sleep on the floor, denied appropriate clothing for the weather, and sometimes restricted from food, despite being a child with normal nutritional needs. Even at school, Raylee's teachers began noticing signs of distress. She appeared thin, pale, and exhausted. Her gentle, trusting nature made her cling to adults she felt safe around, often revealing her need for love and protection. Teachers and staff tried to intervene, But Raylee's life at home was largely hidden from outside observers. Despite repeated visits to doctors for injuries, explanations from adults in her life often contradicted what was observed. Social workers and medical staff received inconsistent accounts, which delayed timely intervention. Raylee's suffering, though visible in small details, remained obscured by misleading narratives from those responsible for her care. This second segment of our story highlights the growing isolation and risk Raylee faced. The court's custody decisions, while well-intentioned, could not protect her from the harmful dynamics inside her blended household. As we continue, we will explore how these early signs of neglect escalated over time and the role of the adults around her in shaping her tragic story. Raylee JoLynn Browning's story is not just about one child. It reflects systemic gaps, communication failures, and the hidden dangers that vulnerable children face when those meant to protect them fail to act. In the next segment, we will examine her experiences in the blended household, specific incidents of neglect, and the first critical moments that should have triggered outside intervention. As Raylee JoLynn Browning settled into her father Marty's home with Julie Titanel and Cher Titanel, her childhood, which should have been filled with care and security, became overshadowed by neglect. The blended household was complex, with 3 biological children of Julie Titanel and 2 half-siblings of Raylee. Cher Titanel, who assumed significant authority in the home, often directed the daily routines and disciplinary measures. Multiple reports later revealed that Raylee was frequently the target of harsh punishment. According to witnesses, she was forced to perform repetitive chores, sometimes denied basic comforts, and subjected to verbal reprimands. One of Julie Titanel's daughters recalled that Raylee was made to sleep on a mattress on the floor in Cher Titanel's room, even though she was fully capable of using a bed. On some occasions, she was required to wear a diaper despite being toilet-trained, and was sometimes prevented from eating for extended periods. Teachers at Mount Lookout Elementary School were among the first to notice troubling signs. Raylee often appeared withdrawn, overly clingy to adults, and hesitant to participate in normal childhood activities. She frequently begged to stay longer at school, revealing her fear of returning home. Her bright blue eyes and gentle demeanor contrasted sharply with the grim reality she faced. Despite these visible warning signs, the adults in her life created narratives that misrepresented the truth. Injuries were often dismissed as accidents or behavioral issues, and explanations provided to doctors and social workers were inconsistent. For instance, a severe fracture in Raylee's thigh was attributed to an accidental fall, despite medical evidence suggesting otherwise. Each misleading explanation delayed proper intervention and allowed the cycle of neglect to continue. This period in Raylee's life highlights the dangerous combination of isolation, misleading narratives, and systemic failures. While teachers, neighbors, and medical professionals attempted to intervene, their efforts were often undermined by the controlled environment of her home. Raylee's small cries for help went unheard, a stark reminder of how easily vulnerable children can be overlooked when adults fail to take responsibility. In the next segment, we will dive deeper into the timeline of injuries, the early hospital visits, and the first attempts by school staff and mandated reporters to alert authorities. These moments are crucial to understanding the missed opportunities that compounded Raylee's suffering. Raylee JoLynn Browning's situation escalated as the years went on, with signs of neglect becoming increasingly apparent. One of the earliest critical incidents occurred during a routine school day when teachers noticed bruising on her body. Despite the alarming evidence, adults in her household offered explanations that minimized the severity of her injuries. Medical visits became more frequent, yet each one ended with inconsistent stories. Cher Titanel, acting as the primary caregiver, claimed that Raylee often hurt herself, while the adults provided additional misleading explanations, such as behavioral problems or accidents. These narratives diverted attention from the real cause: repeated neglect and harmful treatment. At Mount Lookout Elementary School, teachers observed Raylee's constant hunger, unusual tiredness, and pale appearance. She often hid her discomfort, seeking reassurance from adults she trusted. On several occasions, she whispered to her teachers about being denied food or forced to endure harsh punishments. These small but persistent signs indicated a home environment that was unsafe for a child. When Raylee was brought to the hospital for a fractured thigh, medical staff were immediately concerned. A femur fracture in a child is not typical from a simple fall and requires careful investigation. Social workers were alerted, yet the reports filed by mandated reporters did not result in immediate protective action. The failure to respond timely allowed neglect to continue, worsening her condition over months and years. During these early hospital visits, Raylee's demeanor reflected fear and confusion. She often avoided eye contact with adults in her household, clinging instead to teachers, nurses, and other compassionate figures. Her small pleas for help were subtle but clear. She was trapped in a cycle of neglect that those outside the household were struggling to address. This segment reveals the early missed opportunities, critical moments where intervention could have prevented further harm. It underscores the systemic gaps in child protection, where conflicting reports, misleading narratives, and delayed responses allowed Raylee's suffering to escalate. In the next segment, we will examine the continued neglect, the introduction of homeschooling as a means of isolation, and the pattern of abuse that ultimately led to the tragic outcome. As Raylee continued to grow, her parents decided to withdraw her from public school and transition her into homeschooling. While homeschooling can be a legitimate choice for education, in Raylee's case, it became a tool for isolation. Removed from the watchful eyes of teachers and classmates, she was increasingly cut off from outside oversight. Under the supervision of Sir Titanal, and with minimal interference from her father Marty and stepmother Julie, Raylee faced daily routines filled with harsh rules and restrictions. She was often denied meals, forced to complete excessive chores, and subjected to verbal abuse. In some instances, she was confined to small spaces and deprived of basic comfort items. The isolation intensified her vulnerability, leaving her dependent entirely on those who mistreated her. During this period, Raylee's small attempts to seek attention and care were misinterpreted or dismissed. Sir Titanal frequently instructed other children in the home to fabricate explanations for Raylee's injuries and behaviors, further complicating the picture for any outsider trying to intervene. This systematic manipulation of information allowed abuse and neglect to remain hidden for months at a time. Meanwhile, her mother, Janice, struggled to maintain contact but was unaware of the multiple relocations and misleading accounts. Phone calls and requests for visitation often went unanswered. This created a sense of helplessness, both for Raylee and for her biological mother. Even within the household, Raylee's siblings observed the mistreatment. Some attempted to help in small ways, offering comfort or sharing food, but were themselves constrained by fear and control. The pattern of isolation, neglect, and emotional manipulation created an environment where Raylee's basic needs and safety were consistently overlooked. By the end of this segment, it is clear that the shift to homeschooling, coupled with the adults' deliberate concealment of harm, significantly increased the risk to Raylee's well-being. Her story highlights how lack of oversight and systemic gaps can turn a safe home into a dangerous environment. In the next segment, we will explore the progression of injuries, the mounting medical evidence, and the repeated interventions that failed to protect her. As the months passed, Raylee's body began showing increasingly severe signs of neglect and abuse. Teachers at Mount Lookout Elementary had already reported bruises and unusual injuries. However, after she was withdrawn from public school, the only oversight came from medical visits, which were sporadic and often misled by the adults in her care. One of the most alarming incidents occurred when Raylee suffered a fracture to her femur. A child's femur is the longest and strongest bone in the body. Breaking it requires significant force, far beyond a simple fall or minor accident. Yet, the adults reported that she had somehow injured herself while playing, a story that was inconsistent with the physical evidence. Social workers and medical staff were alerted, but each investigation faced barriers. Sir Titanal coached other household members to provide false explanations, while Marty and Julie rarely disclosed the full truth. The attempts to hide the abuse allowed neglect to continue unchecked, and Raylee's health declined steadily. Beyond physical injuries, her emotional and nutritional needs were also ignored. She was often denied meals, forced to follow unreasonable schedules, and subjected to harsh punishment for minor mistakes. Teachers recalled that she would cling to them, begging to stay longer at school or seeking comfort from adults she could trust. Her small pleas for attention were clear warnings that the system failed to act upon. Even during medical visits, caregivers misrepresented her condition. They claimed she had behavioral issues or fabricated medical concerns to explain her bruises. In reality, the evidence pointed to prolonged, deliberate neglect and physical mistreatment. This segment highlights the devastating consequences of repeated failures. Each missed opportunity to intervene compounded the risks, leaving Raylee trapped in an unsafe environment. Her story underscores the importance of timely reporting, proper investigation, and the critical role that mandated reporters and oversight agencies play in protecting vulnerable children. In the next segment, we will cover the escalation of harm, the hospital's emergency interventions, and the tragic day when Raylee could no longer be saved. By December 26, 2018, the signs of prolonged neglect had become impossible to ignore. Raylee's breathing had grown labored, her body pale and weak. She was suffering from severe malnutrition, dehydration, and early stages of a critical infection. Despite her worsening condition, the adults in her care delayed seeking proper medical attention. Sher Titanal eventually called 911, claiming Raylee had slipped while stepping out of the shower. Emergency responders arrived to find a child pale, barely breathing, and with multiple visible injuries. Bruises, burn-like marks, and abrasions told a story far more alarming than the accident they described. EMTs immediately began resuscitation efforts. Every professional present recognized the signs of long-term abuse. Raylee's body had endured severe trauma over an extended period, and her condition was critical. She was transported to Plateau Medical Center in Oak Hill, West Virginia, where medical staff attempted life-saving interventions. Doctors quickly assessed that Raylee was suffering from necrotizing bronchopneumonia, a severe infection destroying lung tissue, and likely sepsis, a life-threatening response to infection. Her lungs showed early fibrosis, evidence that respiratory difficulties had been ongoing for days. Shockingly, her body also revealed the effects of prolonged malnutrition and multiple strong psychiatric medications, many of which had been administered without clear medical justification. Even as doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to save her, it was clear that Raylee had been unresponsive for hours before the 911 call. Her tiny frame had endured unimaginable suffering, made worse by delays, neglect, and misrepresentation by those tasked with her care. This segment emphasizes the critical consequences of systemic failure. Each missed warning, from teachers, neighbors, and medical staff, culminated in a tragedy that could have been prevented. Raylee's story serves as a stark reminder of the responsibilities of caregivers, professionals, and the community in protecting children from harm. In the next segment, we will examine the official investigation, the charges against the adults involved, and the legal proceedings that followed this heartbreaking case. Following Raylee JoLynn Browning's tragic passing, the Oak Hill Police Department launched a full-scale investigation. The evidence of prolonged abuse and neglect led to the arrests of Sher Titanal, Julie Titanal, and Marty Browning. Sher Titanal was charged with neglect or harmful treatment of a child resulting in serious injury, along with a felony related to child endangerment. Julie Titanal and Marty Browning faced the same charges. Bail for each was set at $100,000. While Julie's family posted bail for her, Marty paid his bond on the one-year anniversary of Raylee's passing. The investigation revealed systemic failures. Reports submitted by teachers and other mandated reporters had repeatedly highlighted Raylee's injuries, malnutrition, and emotional distress. Yet, Child Protective Services in Nicholas County failed to take timely action. Investigators found that the adults deliberately exploited loopholes, moving Raylee multiple times without informing her biological mother or authorities. During searches of the home, law enforcement discovered evidence consistent with abuse, including household items used as instruments of punishment. Interviews with witnesses, including Julie's daughter, revealed that Raylee was frequently denied food and subjected to harsh physical discipline. The combination of physical, emotional, and medical neglect painted a clear picture. Raylee had suffered prolonged maltreatment that contributed directly to her death. Medical experts testified that timely intervention could have saved her life. Dr. Alan Mock emphasized that early antibiotics, proper hydration, and medical oversight would likely have prevented her death. Yet, despite these warnings, the legal system only found the 3 adults guilty of child neglect, resulting in serious consequences rather than more severe charges. This segment underscores the importance of accountability. While the arrests and convictions represented some measure of justice, the broader system's failure to protect Raylee raises ongoing questions about oversight, reporting, and the role of authorities in safeguarding vulnerable children. The trial of Julie Titanel, and Marty Browning began amid intense public scrutiny. Courtroom proceedings revealed the extent of Raylee's suffering, and testimonies from teachers, medical staff, and family members provided a detailed account of the prolonged abuse she endured. Teachers recalled seeing bruises, malnourishment, and emotional distress, emphasizing that Raylee clung to adults at school, seeking safety and affection that was denied at home. Medical professionals testified about the severe infections, malnutrition, and the unnecessary psychiatric medications administered to the child, all of which compounded her vulnerability. Witnesses painted a picture of a child trapped in a cycle of neglect and emotional trauma. Julie's daughter testified to the harsh conditions in the household, including denial of food, excessive punishment, and isolation from basic care. Social workers confirmed multiple reports had been filed, yet Child Protective Services failed to act adequately. During cross-examinations, the defense argued that the injuries and conditions were accidental or misreported. However, the prosecution highlighted inconsistencies, deliberate concealment, and the long-term pattern of abuse. Special Prosecutor Brian Parson emphasized the failure of adults to meet their basic responsibilities, noting that Raylee's final hours were the tragic result of cumulative neglect. The court was presented with overwhelming evidence that while the abuse may not have been directly lethal in intent, the neglect was egregious and preventable. The testimonies made clear that no child should endure such conditions and that accountability was essential, not only for justice in this case, but as a warning to caregivers everywhere. The sentencing phase brought closure to a tragic chapter in Raylee JoLynn Browning's life. On August 12, 2022, the Fayette County Circuit Court of West Virginia handed down judgments. Julie Titanel, and Marty Browning were all found guilty of child neglect resulting in serious consequences, but acquitted of the more severe charges directly causing Raylee's death. Each received a sentence ranging from 3 to 15 years, with eligibility for parole after 3 years. Judge Paul M. Blake Jr. emphasized the severity of the neglect, highlighting that the defendant's failure to provide basic care had led to the heartbreaking loss of a young life. Public reaction was strong. Community members, teachers, and advocates voiced concerns about how much longer it took for justice to be served. Many criticized the leniency of the sentences compared to the severity of Raylee's suffering. Comments online reflected outrage, sorrow, and a collective call for reforms in child protective systems. The case also highlighted systemic weaknesses. The West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources had delayed providing crucial records, which hampered timely investigation. Experts and advocates argued that stricter enforcement of mandated reporting and better oversight of homeschooling children at risk could prevent similar tragedies. Legislators responded by proposing Law HB 4440, aimed at strengthening child protections. The law restricts individuals with histories of neglect or CPS involvement from homeschooling and requires checks to ensure children are not isolated from oversight. While this legislative step represented progress, advocates stressed that consistent vigilance from schools, communities, and authorities remains critical to protect vulnerable children like Raylee. After the court proceedings, the community and Raylee's family came together to honor her memory. A memorial service was held on January 12, 2019, at Thierry Funeral Home in Oak Hill, West Virginia, led by Reverend Richard Allen. Family, friends, and neighbors attended, paying tribute to a child whose life was tragically cut short. Raylee was laid to rest at Lee Webb Cemetery, near the Dothan area. Her headstone features her bright, joyful face from happier moments, alongside an image of her favorite Disney character, Rapunzel, symbolizing her innocence and quiet strength. The inscription reads, "Tread softly, my sunshine rests here, a poignant reminder of the love she inspired in those around her. Her mother, Janice, shared a heartfelt poem by Liz Newman on social media, expressing the profound grief and enduring love she felt for her daughter. The poem captured the daily longing, the quiet memories, and the unbroken bond between a mother and child, even in the face of devastating loss. Community members reflected on the case, acknowledging the failures of oversight and the importance of vigilance. Teachers, neighbors, and advocates stressed that Raylee's story must serve as a reminder: attentive eyes and proactive care can save lives. Each act of awareness, reporting, and intervention may prevent another tragedy like hers. Raylee's story, though heartbreaking, has become a catalyst for change. Schools, social workers, and legislators now consider her case when shaping policies and training programs. Her legacy lives on through awareness, advocacy, and the continued fight to protect children who may otherwise remain unseen. Raylee JoLynn Browning's tragic death exposed critical gaps in the child protection system. Experts and advocates identified several key areas in need of reform. First, mandated reporting must be enforced consistently. Teachers, doctors, and caregivers who suspect abuse or neglect have a legal duty to notify authorities immediately. Failure to do so, as in Raylee's case, can have devastating consequences. Second, homeschooling policies require stricter oversight. Isolation from schools removes layers of protection that often catch signs of abuse early. Lawmakers introduced HB 4440 in West Virginia to limit homeschooling by individuals with histories of neglect or criminal involvement and to ensure that children remain visible to trained observers. Third, better communication and coordination among child welfare agencies are vital. In Raylee's situation, delayed records and mismanagement by the Department of Health and Human Resources slowed investigations. Coordinated data sharing, timely responses, and accountability measures are essential to prevent children from falling through the cracks. Finally, communities play a critical role. Neighbors, relatives, and friends who notice concerning behaviors must speak up. Even small acts of vigilance, reporting bruises, prolonged absence, or sudden behavioral changes, can make a life-saving difference. Raylee's story reminds us that every child deserves protection, and collective responsibility is key to preventing further tragedies. As viewers, there is a lesson in awareness and advocacy. Understanding the signs of neglect, knowing the reporting process, and supporting policies that protect children are ways each of us can honor Raylee's memory while creating safer environments for all children. The trial of Marty Browning, Julie Titanel, and Sher Titanel began with an intense examination of Raylee's living conditions and the failures that led to her death. Witnesses, including teachers, medical staff, and family members, provided detailed testimony about the neglect and abuse Raylee endured. Carrie Silberry, Raylee's teacher, recounted bruises and unusual injuries she observed over the years. She emphasized that the child appeared fearful, withdrawn, and often clung to adults at school for safety. Silberry testified about Raylee being deprived of food and proper clothing, and how she repeatedly tried to advocate for the child through formal reports to Child Protective Services. Medical experts provided crucial insights into the severity of Raylee's condition. Dr. Alan Mock and Dr. C. Metten Sisman highlighted that Raylee's injuries, including severe pneumonia, dehydration, and malnutrition, were inconsistent with explanations provided by the caregivers. They explained that earlier medical intervention could have saved her life, underlining the systemic failures that contributed to the tragedy. Family members also testified, revealing attempts to conceal the child's abuse. Julie Titanel's sister described being asked to lie to authorities about Raylee's condition. These testimonies illustrated a pattern of intentional obstruction and neglect, compounding the harm inflicted on Raylee. Throughout the trial, prosecutors emphasized the responsibility of each caregiver. Special Prosecutor Brian Parson underscored that the child's suffering was prolonged due to inaction and misrepresentation by the adults entrusted with her care. The jury faced a complex case, balancing evidence of neglect with the challenge of proving direct causation in Raylee's death. This trial highlighted the importance of transparency, accountability, and vigilance within families, schools, and community systems. It also raised awareness about how easily vulnerable children can be overlooked and why reforms in child protection procedures are critical. After weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury delivered its verdict. Marty Browning, Julie Titanel, and Cher Titanel were found guilty of child neglect resulting in serious consequences, while acquitted of the more severe charges directly causing Raylee's death. The court sentenced each defendant to 3 to 15 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 3 years. Judge Paul Blake Jr. emphasized the seriousness of neglect and the lasting impact on the child. The verdict was met with mixed reactions from the public. Many expressed relief that justice, even if partial, had been served, while others criticized the sentences as insufficient considering the tragedy that had unfolded. Community members reflected on the systemic failures exposed by the case. Child advocacy groups highlighted gaps in oversight, accountability, and enforcement of homeschooling regulations, arguing that legal reforms like HB 4440 were essential to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Social media reactions were filled with sorrow and calls for reform. Parents, teachers, and citizens shared their grief over Raylee's loss, emphasizing the need for vigilance and collective responsibility to protect vulnerable children. Comments under online news coverage repeatedly pointed to the failures of child protective services and questioned how such neglect could go undetected for so long. The verdict also prompted discussions about mandatory reporting and the accountability of institutions responsible for child welfare. Experts argued that increased awareness, education, and enforcement of protective policies are key to preventing cases like Raylee's. Her story, though heartbreaking, became a catalyst for change and a call to action for communities across the country. Raylee JoLynn Browning's life, though tragically short, left a lasting impression on her family, her community, and the systems meant to protect children. A memorial service was held on January 12, 2019 at Thierry Funeral Home in Oak Hill, West Virginia, under the direction of Reverend Richard Allen. Family, friends, and community members gathered to honor Raylee, celebrating the joy and innocence she brought to those around her. Her headstone, adorned with her bright smile and an image of Rapunzel, carries the inscription, "Tread softly, my sunshine rests here." These words capture the essence of Raylee, a gentle, loving child whose memory continues to inspire awareness and change. Raylee's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, advocacy, and community involvement in protecting children. Teachers, medical staff, neighbors, and even passers-by can play critical roles in recognizing warning signs and ensuring that reports of abuse or neglect are taken seriously. The tragedy also underscores the need for systemic reforms in child protection, including stricter oversight of homeschooling, better enforcement of mandatory reporting, and enhanced accountability for caregivers and institutions. West Virginia's HB 4440 is one such effort to close loopholes and provide safeguards for children at risk. For viewers, Raylee's story is a call to action. Every report, every concern, and every intervention matters. By staying informed, vigilant, and compassionate, communities can prevent other children from suffering the same fate. Her memory endures not only in her family's hearts but in the awareness and advocacy inspired by her life. Thank you for joining us on this episode of US Case Stories. If you want to honor Raylee or share your thoughts, leave a message in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so her story can reach more people and help protect other vulnerable children. Until next time, stay aware, stay vigilant, and remember, the safety of our children is a responsibility we all share.